Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, I know that there is now a new meta arising, given the fact that we have just gotten some new really powerful cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. So I'm here on MasterDuelMeta.com to kind of go through what to expect and just kind of guide you through the new meta as it begins to shape. So first and foremost, it has only been about a day since I have recorded this, and probably since you have seen this, since we have gotten the new adventure cards. Now, those aren't the only new cards as well. We have gotten some notable increases to things like Live Twins, as well as we've gotten Small World, which helps a myriad of different decks, and most importantly, we have gotten the entirely new archetype in Flunder. We've also gotten a few other notable additions to previous decks, so there's that, including Sue Ship. Let's go. We love Sue Ship here. But first and foremost, let's talk about the top tier strategies that are boosted by the Adventure Engine. First of all, we have Eldritch. Eldritch was already one of what I would consider the three top decks, with Sword Soul Tenyi, Eldritch, and Tri-Brigade. Just any form of those. All three of those, I would say, were the top three decks, both on the ladder as well as in tournaments, that most people played and had good results with. Sword Soul Tenyi, incredibly consistent. Same with Zodiac Tri-Brigade. Sword Soul Tenyi set up stronger boards. Zodiac Tri-Brigade had better follow-up. And Eldritch, I mean, it's Eldritch. It's a control strategy, and it does what it does very well. Now, Eldritch is receiving support in basically a new way to play it. Very similar to things like the Jet Synchron Eldritch, as well as just other Eldritch variants that we've had in the past. We now have Eldritch with Cybers, or kind of like a 60-card pile version of Eldritch. You can play it with or without Floodgates, but basically it's another version of combo Eldritch with the Adventure Engine. You throw in the Adventure Engine, you throw in Eldritch, and all of a sudden you have 20 cards or more, and then you can throw in some hand traps, you can throw in maybe a small engine in there as well to potentially get to Crystron Halqifibrax or the like, and now you're off to the races with that deck. Now, if you're looking to counter this deck, it's pretty simple. The Eldritch half is easy to deal with in and of itself. They only played the two Eldritch. They're not playing a lot of Floodgates, so it's just kind of running them out of resources. Normally, if they have the Eldritch half of their deck, they're mostly on survival mode unless they see the other sections. As for the adventure stuff, get rid of the token. If you can get rid of the token, the deck dies. You gotta get rid of that token. And even better, if you can get rid of the continuous spell with something like a Ghost Ogre, which allows you to pop it when it goes to activate its effect while it is already on the field, which gets them the Griffin Rider. You pop it with the Ghost Ogre, all of a sudden, their engine stops. So, those two things to stop the adventure half of that deck. And then for the Cyber stuff, it's pretty simple. It's Crystron Halqifibrax shenanigans. You go into the Link Devotee and Link Disciple, and they just summon a whole bunch, so something like a Nibiru is very nice. New hand traps to look out for. Nibiru, play multiples of that, as well as potentially Ghost Ogre and Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. So those two. Moving on, we have Virtual World. Virtual World is doing the same thing that it did previously, but now with the Adventure Engine to allow it just more potentially good plays. The Adventure Engine, I already mentioned. With the Virtual World stuff, it's pretty simple. As long as you have access to spell and trap removal for something like a True King of All Calamities, as well as potentially other such stuff to just allow you to survive a turn without just being immediately OTK'd. And if you're playing Called by the Grave like you should be fine against this deck. Again, the Adventure Engine makes it a little bit more scary, but you should be good nonetheless. Kaijus are also very powerful in this format, given the fact that you can even tribute over the Adventure Engine token and go for that. So potentially look into some Kaijus as well if you want to do that. However, notably, the Ghost Ogre also hits the Virtual World cards as well. So if you're playing Ghost Ogre, there you go. You get to hit them as well. Same with Nibiru. Two hand traps to really look out for. Moving on, we have the Adventure Tenyi. Adventure Tenyi is basically just the Tenyi stuff from Sword Soul, a few Sword Soul cards thrown in, like the Chi Xiao, like Long One, etc., for additional follow-up, and then Adventure and Halqifibrax stuff. Pretty standard when it comes to the combos that they do. They don't really do the Sword Soul stuff. They do more Halqifibrax as well as adventure stuff. And it's pretty simple to stop Halqifibrax. Just negate its effect, etc., etc. Now, it's even better if you can stop them prior to them getting to the Halqifibrax. Reason being, Halq can now be paired with DPE or Dagda to, Scythe lock your opponent and potentially also go into a Baron on the opponent's turn. So do keep that in mind. You kind of have to watch out for that. However, Scythe, when it hits the field, you can also negate its effects with something like an Infinite Impermanence or the myriad of other cards that interact with negations. So if you have a way to interact with that, there's another stop to it. We have Adventure Prank Kid. This one is more about generating constant resource advantage loops. The best way to deal with the Adventure Prank Kid stuff is know that they are playing a lot of hand traps most of the time. They are playing just the adventure stuff as well as a pretty standard Prank Kid board with something like a Battle Butler and a Meow Meow Moo in the graveyard to get potentially 2 Raigekis. So what you're going to want to do is negate its effects on the field of the Prank Kid battling Butler, which if you stop its effects, it's not going to be able to Raigeki your board. So doing something like that, again, Imperm is very good. The 3 cards, again, to watch out for are Nibiru, Imperm, and Ghost Ogre. So looking at those three are going to rise in priority. Obviously, we still have Ash Blossom and Maxi, which are very nice. If you're playing a combo deck, that means you're going to be wanting to run a lot more hand traps, which is why 60-card piles are so prominent. And another 60-card pile that we have is Phantom Knights. So we have the Cyberse Eldritch engine, which can be 60 cards, but Phantom Knights is one of the biggest abusers of 60 cards, which is right here on this tier list. Phantom Knights, what they want to do is pretty simple. Instead of setting up things like Rongo Miniad, which is honestly not really that good, they just go for a pretty standard board, Apollosa, some back row negation with the Fogblade, and just a consistent board that is able to recur itself pretty easily with their traps in the grave. On top of the simple adventure engine, as well as being able to play things like Rose Dragons to go into the Halqifibrax stuff as well. It's a lot of Halq, it's a lot of adventure, I get that. But that's okay. So that's more so what you're going to be looking out for with the Phantom Knights. Again, this one, it's just a matter of having 2 hand traps. If you're able to have something like a Nibiru and an Imperm, you can pretty easily end the turn of all of these decks pretty consistently. And you can end them on a pretty weak board. Most of their effects are through monsters. A few of them not so much, such as Virtual World and Phantom Knights, but there you go. As well as the Eldritch stuff. Now, let's talk about some of the other decks that we should expect to see with Flunder. This deck is actually very easy to beat. You just got to know what their cards do. So let's look at the Flunderies decks real quick. Now, the first thing to note is Dimension Shifter. If you're playing Called by the Grave, you already have the best out to the Dimension Shifter. Basically, you just banish it. Now, this one just, I mean, it's Dimension Shifter. It banishes everything. That is one of the only hand traps that is consistent in this deck, so you're not going to be playing through many hand traps. However, some things to note. With Unexplored Winds, they contribute off your own cards, including spells and traps. Meaning, do not let this card resolve if you can. Do not let this card resolve. Okay? Okay. Second, they brick like crazy. Stop the Pots, Pot of Duality, Pot of Prosperity are the best Ash targets because they chain block themselves with things like Robina and Eaglin. Okay, if they activate Map in order to reveal one of the others, or if they have one of these guys already banished, you're not going to be able to Ash them. If they don't activate Map, or they don't already have one of their small leveled birds banished, you can Ash Blossom them. So again, Ash Blossom decreases in priority. Same with Maxi, just due to this card being ever so popular. But what rises in priority is Effect Veiler and Imperm against this deck. Both of these are targeted negations, which allow you to negate the effect of the monster that is actually doing the searching. The cards that are banished are adding themselves back to the hand, okay? So if you stop the effect of the Flunders that are normaled, they don't get an extra normal, their turn stops most of the time. Unless they have map, in which case you can't ash it, you can't really do anything about it. Just wait it out. Moving on, we also have M-Pen. This is an important card to remember. This card says once per battle during damage calculation. If this card battles an opponent's monster, you can banish a card from your hand. That opponent's monster's current attack becomes halved until the end of this turn. So, most of the time, if you attack into an M-Pen, you will lose combat. Remember this, okay? I'm sure you have already figured that out, but yeah, remember this. Other things to note, Rise of the Mega Monarch can, again, come out and spin away your stuff, stacking it to the top of the deck. We have Apex Avian, or Mist Valley Apex Avian, which is a negate, and then, of course, the Barrier Statue. Again, Imperm becomes very high priority. Nibiru also hits this deck. However, the problem with Nibiru is oftentimes they don't summon 5 times, which means that they're mostly not going to be under the Nibiru. So do keep that in mind. Nibiru is really good against a lot of the other decks. It's not good against this one. Imperm, Effect Veiler against this deck in particular. Now, if you're just playing a main deck, Ghost Ogre doesn't hit this deck except for the Unexplored Winds. However, the Unexplored Winds, when it comes to tribute summoning, doesn't activate. So that Ghost Ogre only activates if they activate the effect where during the main phase you could reveal the winged beasts, place them on the bottom of the deck, and then draw cards. So there's that. Okay? Again, Ghost Ogre, still very high priority, etc., etc. Okay? As for other decks to look out for, Dragon Link, pretty simple. Same cards that hit it. You're looking to negate the Striker Dragon, the Verte. They play lots of hand traps. They play 60 cards. It's pretty standard. You want to hit Striker Dragon. Sorry. You want to hit the Striker Dragon. You want to hit the Crystron Halqifibrax. You want to hit the Verte if you can. Or you want to be playing things like Kaijus or the like to deal with those boards as well. Hopefully, this helped you guys out at understanding what the meta is, what to expect, and just overall what's going on. Now, I don't think that the other two top decks with Tenyi Sword Soul, as well as Zodiac, or just Tri Brigade in general, are going anywhere. I still think that they're going to be absolutely phenomenal and still some of the best decks of the format. But hopefully this helped. Anyway, that's going to be it for this episode. I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy. If you did, a like is very much so appreciated. And if you want to check out more content like this, as well as more Yu-Gi-Oh!, then just be sure to subscribe. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. And remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye.